All right, welcome back. We are not going to do an intro. We're just going to jump right into Adobe Photoshop here. So I have an image here. I would normally tell you to absolutely make all adjustments either in Adobe Lightroom or Adobe Camera Raw. However, I've just opened this image directly into Photoshop so I can explain to you the difference between destructive and non-destructive adjustments inside of Adobe Photoshop. So we are going to start off with what we call destructive adjustments. Just because it says the word destructive does not mean that it is bad. All right, it's just a different process. It doesn't do anything that the non-destructive adjustment won't eventually do. So a destructive adjustment means that it immediately applies your adjustment to the image. So I'm going to hit Command M. That brings up curves. It would be Control M on a PC. I'm going to make this adjustment and hit OK. You will see there's no adjustment layer. It just physically changed this. It made it look different. That is because when I hit OK, it physically changed the data in the file. And if I save this out, I can't go back in time. So every time we do something, I'm going to hit Command B, which is for color. I'm going to come in here. I'll change the color a little bit. I'll hit OK. It physically changed the data again. That's what destructive adjustments mean. They are not bad. I'm going to come up here to one of my favorite keys, which is revert. As long as you don't save an image, you can revert, and that will just take you back to the beginning. Okay. How do we make these destructive adjustments? Well, it's really simple. You're going to come up here to Image, Adjustments, and then anything that we see right here is available. We're going to stick with just these first ones up here. All these are doing is essentially controlling brightness and contrast in your image. There are 4 different ways to do the same thing. However, you'll notice that this one and this one over here has a little quick key. One is Command or Control L, the other is Command or Control M. What you will find out is that Photoshop excels in multiple ways to do the exact same thing. Do you need to understand or to use all 4 of these? No, never. I just use curves. Most likely, everybody should either use curves or levels. Why are they the most important? Well, they got quick keys. Adobe has even noticed that, yeah, those are the ones that need the quick keys because that's what people actually use. Do you need to learn levels and curves? No, they do the same thing, essentially. You have more control, however, with curves. So we're going to hit curves, and that window that I showed you pops up. I can do something to the curve, I can hit OK, and it's physically applied that to the image. I'm going to hit Command Z to undo that. So that is what we call destructive adjustment. Once again, it's image, adjustments, and you could pick anything that you see right here, okay? How I will be teaching you in this set of tutorials is making what's called non-destructive adjustments or layer adjustments. So if we come over here to curves and the adjustments and I click on this, you'll see now it's created this new little layer right here. It does the exact same thing. I can brighten it up and yeah, it's brightened. However, it's not physically applying it to the image. We're just seeing a preview of what it would look like if we use this. I can turn that off. I can turn that on by clicking that little eyeball. I can also go back and edit this at any time. If I save this image out as either a PSD, which is a Photoshop document, or a .tiff document, that can save layers, which are these over here. So if I save those layers out and I come back in 3 days, this is going to be available to me and I can come in here and manipulate and change that at any time. That's what we mean non-destructive. It's not doing anything. However, you're going to save this out eventually as like a JPEG. It's going to go ahead and make those adjustments to your file eventually. But this is giving us control over time. It's not changing the data multiple times. It's just going to do it in one fatal swoop when we do the conversion. Let's go ahead. I'm going to delete this layer And let's take a look at this. So there's 3 ways I'm going to show you to make an adjustment layer. You should only use one of them. And guess what? You can use whichever one makes you the happiest. I would not suggest this first method because it's slow. You're going to come up here to Layer, New Adjustment Layer. We'll do Curves again. We get a new layer window. You could add a new name for it if you wanted right there. We're going to hit OK. And then, yeah, it makes that layer. So, yeah, that process is like 3 steps. It takes a long time. I could make that adjustment just like we did before. And voila, we have an adjustment layer. I'm going to turn that one off. Method number 2, you already saw me do it. You come up here. This is my favorite. You just click the little curve right there. And just like that, it creates an adjustment layer. I can come over here to the adjustment layer. I can make my adjustment and we're done. So there's a bunch of little icons. However, you can configure the look however you want. So if you look right up here, we've got this little hamburger menu. If I click that, I can click this grid and we get a different look. So if I click it, we can have it laid out like that, or I can click it like this and it will lay it out in that manner. I just use this. It doesn't matter which one you use, whichever one you like the best. And we're going to come down here to this little symbol on the bottom, a sun or a circle that's like half dark or half bright. If we click on that, it brings up all the different adjustments. However, you'll notice up there on the top that there's no solid color adjustment, but down here there is a solid color adjustment. So there actually is more adjustment layers available here than you'd get up here. Why? I don't know. You'll have to ask Adobe on that one. So the way that would work I would come here, we would select this, I'd go up to curves just to keep it consistent, I'd click that, and it's doing the exact same thing. All you need to do is learn one of those methods, all right? Whichever one you like the best is the way you should use it. So let's go ahead and turn that off. I'm going to just come up here, I'm going to go to File, Revert. So let's take a look at our first set of adjustments. Now, if you're following the series and you've made a lot of your basic adjustments in Lightroom, you aren't going to need to make these basic adjustments here. So when I just click curves and I make an adjustment, it's a global adjustment, meaning it's happening everywhere. So the way a layer works, and this is something you absolutely need to understand because this is basically how Photoshop works, is if you come over here, you see this white box. So the adjustment is this little icon, and you see how it has a little white box around it. Right now it's activated, so it's going to show us in the properties the little curve box. But next to it, the little white box. This is called a mask. If the mask is white, it's showing the entire adjustment. So what's the adjustment? It's the curves, right? So, and I'll make this really bright so we can see it. It's not going to look that great. So this is the adjustment. And because this mask is white, and this mask identifies with this whole picture. I'll show you what that means in a second. So it's white, so it's showing that adjustment. I'm going to hit Command-I on my keyboard, and it's going to convert that mask to black. Now, none of that adjustment, the curves adjustment I just did, is showing. Why? Because black hides the adjustment. So white, Command-I, shows the adjustment. Black hides the adjustment. So how does this work? Well, I could take my mask, and we're going to learn this in the next couple of videos. I'm not going to hit on it a lot. I'm going to make a selection, and I'm going to fill that selection on that side with black. Now notice, this is in the mask. So this is my mask over here. Notice it's white here and black here. So what that means is, on the white side, it's showing the adjustment. Over here, it's not showing the adjustment. I'm identifying in the image where I want the adjustment to be seen by black or white. I will show you how we make those adjustments or do that in the next video. But what you need to understand is black hides, white shows. And how did I get this? This is actually the view of the mask that we see right here. I can hit Command I, you can see it change just like that. So the way I get that up is on a Mac, I'm going to Option click the mask, and on a PC, you're going to Alt click the mask. So white shows, black hides. That's all you need to know for now. And everything in Adobe Photoshop, just like in Adobe Lightroom, uses this mask idea. So let's go ahead and delete this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through a couple of tools and I'm going to explain them to you. Right here we have brightness contrast, and if I click that adjustment, we get a simple slider for brightness and contrast. Okay? It works. Is it perfect? No. Next, we have, I'll come over here to exposure because we're not really going to use that as well. So we have overall exposure, we have offset, and we have gamma correction. I think most people will understand the concept of exposure, but a lot of people aren't going to understand the mathematical concept of offset and gamma correction means. Yeah, you can slide the sliders and see what it does. In my case, I don't suggest to anybody to ever use those two. What I do think you should use is either levels or curves. I will always say curves is absolutely better, but if you want to use levels, levels can work. So you can see right here, we have this is our histogram. This just simply shows where the data is in your image. So this side over here is my highlights, and this side over here is my shadows. And if you look here, see there's some space in between this because I didn't do anything in the raw. It's saying over here. So the first thing I'm going to do is optimize my histogram. And what that means is I'm just going to slide this slider over till it starts to get right around here. And I'm going to do that in the blacks as well. If it starts to get too bright or contrasty, I might back it off a little bit. But I'm just going to get that in a better spot. That's optimizing my histogram. That being said, we can come over here and adjust this slider. This is our highlights. So if I go to the left, which is the only way you can go, it's making your highlights brighter. But in doing so, you're also moving this, which a lot of people say is your midtones. It's really not. It's really the gamma. But so this moves your highlights. This is your gamma. Think of it kind of as your midtones. And this is increasing your contrast of your image. Meaning, essentially, it's making your blacks blacker and your whites whiter. Down here, we also have adjustments. So if I want to take my blacks and make them a little bit flatter, less contrast, I slide this slider. Up here, this increases the contrast. This decreases the contrast, right? Up here, this brightened my highlights. This will darken my highlights. So that's how curves work. Now, curves can work in multiple modes. We can work in RGB, which is the R, the G, the B field, but you can also come in here and work in the red channel. Now, I don't suggest this in the beginning, but what this will allow you to do is actually do some basic color correction. It is toning brightness and contrast of your image, but only in the red channel. And what that does is effectively give you color control without ever going to a separate color controls. I'm going to go ahead and reset. So down here we have this little symbol that will reset what I've just done, and we can start over. So let's take a look at everything inside levels. We have some presets. You can just come over here, hang over those, click one of those, and it's going to do that preset. I'm not going to be showing you that method in this tutorial. We have the ability to use RGB, red, green, or blue. Right here, we have a black point, so you can set black. So you can come in here and look to try to find your blackest point and set it. Don't ever do that. This sets 100% black. You don't want 100% black in a photo. You actually only want around 97, 96% black. I never set black, I never set white. Right here we have the white, so you could come in here and set white. This is great. It does set white, however, it is not useful. It sets pure white with no detail, which is 255, 255, 255. It's going to do two things. It's going to color correct to a neutral color, so if this was shot at sunset, it would make it not warm and golden anymore. It would fix that, all right, which we don't want. And it sets a white without any detail, which is usually too bright. You usually want a white with around 2% to hold that value. I will show you how to do that later, but don't set white, don't set black. It's not a good thing. Is there a way that you can go into Photoshop and fix that? Yes, but I'm not going to show you. Just in general, we're not going to set black and white. We also can white balance, so that middle one is gray, and you would need something that was neutral. I want you to look down here in the RGB values when I hover over this white right here. Notice that my value is 171, 171, 170. If everything was 171, we would know that is neutral gray. It's not perfect, but it's pretty close because the blue is actually 170. So if I click that point, it would actually change that so that they're all going to be the same, which is the idea. And you can see when I did that, I got this funky, horrible color. This little eyedropper is great for maybe graphic design where you're creating something that's a neutral color. In photography, where we have a lot of gradation, different colors, it just is not an effective tool inside of the program. So that's what that does there. So this is curves. I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. So this is levels. I'm going to come in here and turn that off. My favorite is the curve. It's a little difficult to use, but once you get used to using it, it's going to be very simple. So right here we have presets just like we saw before. We can also go into the RGB red, green, and blue just like we saw before. Here we have the same histogram that we saw, however we have a curve. The curve does everything that levels does, but a little bit more. So right here is our highlights, this is our shadows. We can optimize just like we saw before. Optimizing is bringing this level closer over to the histogram. And as you see, if you slide this bottom slider, just like in levels, it brightens our image. This increases your contrast in the shadow areas, right? So we've optimized that histogram. Now I'm going to come down here just like before we have reset. So we can slide either this slider or this slider, but we can also grab this little circle and this little circle on this diagonal line. It does the same thing as this, and you'll actually see it move when we adjust it. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to grab that and go to the left. It brightens my highlights. However, but if I go down, it darkens my highlights. If we come over here, we increase the contrast, and if we go up, it decreases your contrast. Okay? So this is the shadow area, this is the highlight area. We can also select anywhere along this curve and set a point. So if I wanted to brighten my shadows and midtones, I can left click and drag up on this curve, and you can see the curve makes sense now. It's starting to arc. And so where the adjustment is, and if you look at this, there's a subtle black line below the white line. That's originally where it was. So anything that is up, which is at like a 45-degree angle this way, is going to be brighter. Anything that we go this way with is going to get darker. So what I can do is, if I just want to open my shadows but not my highlights, I can set a second point and bring this down so it's back along that black line of that curve. So this is what that adjustment is doing. It's adjusting my photo, but only in a specific area. And you can set as many points as you want along this curve. However, I don't really suggest anybody really use more than like 2 or 3. Otherwise, you'll start to get some funky effect and it won't look very good. Keep this simple. If you have a point and you want to get rid of it, you can select it and hit the delete key to remove it. You can also throw them away. And this is a little weird to teach. But basically, I'm going to left click and hold, and I'm going to move my mouse really fast to the right. And when I do that, I'm going to let go of the left click. So I'm going to go boom, and it throws that point away. Okay? Kind of fun. So just like in the other program, we have a set black. We're not going to use that. Right here, we have this little thing that says draw to modify the curve. I've never used it. You can just essentially draw it and it will do what you want it to do. If you like that, use it. In my case, I'm not going to use it. So if I come in here and I make this curve like that, I can then come to this little symbol right here and click that, and it's just going to smooth that curve. All right, we are back to the beginning. The last thing we're going to take a look at is this little handy thing up here. So if we select that and then we go into our image and select an area that we want to adjust, like these shadows, I'm going to left click and hold. If I lift up, it brightens. If I go down, it darkens. Okay, and you can see as I'm moving up and down, it's changing that curve in that area. That's a good way to make an adjustment in a location if you're unsure of where it's located in the histogram. All of these are wonderful. I don't use that because I know where everything is in the curve, and you'll see me just come in here and click the curve. You should try everything out and find out what you like the most. Obviously, curves is going to give you the most control because you can set all these crazy points inside of the curve and give yourself the most dynamic adjustment you can. So this is how you make a destructive and a non-destructive adjustment inside of Adobe Photoshop. We have a whole bunch of other adjustments. These are up here are actually new. Feel free to click on them and play around with them and see what they do. But for this part of the tutorial, all I really want you to care about is either curves or levels. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you have any comments or questions, you can always leave those below. Don't forget to subscribe and have an absolutely wonderful day.